Well, maybe if you said catfish and turkey in a certain geographical location in North America, you might be met with, yeah, what's the big deal? But up here in Alberta, you mentioned those two um, species together, and you might get a quizzical look. So, why are we talking about catfish and turkey? Well, no one better to explain that than the CEO and president of the Alberta Conservation Association, Todd Zimmerling. Todd, catfish and turkeys, man.
It's a good way to start a conversation, isn't it? Gets everybody asking, what are you talking about? That's for sure, yeah. I mean, it's two projects that ACA is working on this year. We sort of got started last year. On the turkey side, it's been 2 years, I guess, but it's both projects seem to be moving along and getting a lot of interest from our stakeholder groups. On the turkey side, we've spent the last 2 winters collecting turkeys out of the interior BC. So basically, they're turkeys that are causing problems within small communities, so they've asked us to come and remove these turkeys and give them a brand new home here in Alberta. And that has gone fairly well. This year, again, we captured just under 200 turkeys, and we've put bands on each of the turkeys. And this year, we actually put some radio transmitters on some of the turkeys. And so we released those along the east slopes and on landowners' land where the landowners have agreed that, yeah, we very much would like to have turkeys there, and we'll sort of, quote unquote, take care of them, keep an eye on them, and let us know what's going on with them. And it's been really helpful. So those landowners have been really great to work with, and they've sort of provided us information as to numbers of turkeys they're seeing and where they're seeing them, those kinds of things. So it's gone really well.
It's been interesting. You and I had a conversation a little while ago where I indicated that I had started to see a lot more pheasants just wandering the roads down on the Duchess area, and it really struck me because it's something I hadn't seen before, and I guess with turkeys, is that kind of the same thing? You want to get to a point where they become almost commonplace, and then hunting opportunities will open up.
Well, yeah, certainly we want to try to increase the numbers of turkeys for sure. We've had a declining population over the last few years for sure. And we're trying to see if we can get the turkeys reestablished in some areas and established in some new areas. And, with hopes that if they take hold there, we can increase the number of options for people for going hunting. Right now, the number of people applying at tags far exceeds what we have available for turkey hunting opportunities. So there is a large number of people interested in harvesting a turkey, and that would be our end goal. Part of what that process will be is, like I said, we put some transmitters in some of the hens this year, so we want to get a better sense of what may be causing problems with their populations. Why are we not seeing them take off as quickly as we would like? Get an idea of where they're nesting, when they're nesting, those kinds of things. Research out of the States has indicated that sometimes it's an issue with hunting seasons being too early in the season and affecting the breeding in the spring. So we don't know yet if we have that kind of problem here. Maybe we do, so maybe there'll be some adjustments to hunting seasons going forward to try and push it a little later. But that's all sort of questions that we're starting to look at, that if we're going to take the time and energy to bring turkeys into the province, then we better have a better handle on how do we make sure that they survive better and reproduce, and we start getting basically a population that doesn't need to be sustained with any type of imports from other jurisdictions.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the number of people that actually leave the province to go turkey hunting, whether it's southern Ontario or other points, it's pretty remarkable when you really start poking around and asking people, what are you doing for a spring hunt? And they're heading out of province. So from an economic benefit, at some point, this becomes a win for the province.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And, even if you look at the time of year, like say spring, so if you get lots of hunters out there in the spring traveling to, usually there are more rural communities, so it's a shoulder season for tourism, then even if it's people from within Alberta, you're still creating that rural tourism during the shoulder season. But that's a big part of what we're looking at is trying to get those benefits that we could from a healthy, sustainable population within Alberta. And we're getting, like I said, a lot of help out of BC. They've been very cooperative with allowing us to collect these birds, and now it's just a matter of us trying to get more over the years and try to figure out how we ensure that the populations stay healthy.
Yeah, I guess on that BC front, I mean, you are you're helping British Columbia remove problem birds because these birds have, I guess, habituated themselves into communities and neighborhoods and causing all sorts of havoc.
Yeah, I've been quite amazed when I get some of the photos from our crews, some of these houses that these birds have set up shop in, and it's a bit of a disaster. You wouldn't want to be the guy who has the turkeys roosted in the tree out front. That's all I know. Like it gets to be, as you can imagine, weeks and months of turkeys crapping all over your front yard. Doesn't look so good or smell so good. So, yeah, that's a big part of what we're doing. Is we have been asked by the provincial government there to help them out, and if we could take these turkeys and help establish more of a population in Alberta, they're quite happy to help out there for sure.
What's the time frame, Todd, with this project? Is it sort of indefinite until you hit a number here in Alberta, or is it a finite number regardless of?
Well, at this point, I would say it's indefinite until we either get to the point where, okay, we got lots of turkeys, now we need someone to come take ours away, or, until the other side of it, if, we run out of turkeys from other jurisdictions that we're able to use. Now, hopefully we don't get to that point anytime soon. We also have contacts in the States that are interested in providing turkeys to us as well, so we're looking at that as other options. But yeah, it's a long-term project, there's no doubt about it. I mean, as anybody who's ever looked at trying to establish a population of anything, it takes a while to get them up and running and make sure that they get established where you want them. So we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, we do anticipate that we'll run into some of those issues that they have. Some turkeys are going to show up places we don't want them, and we'll deal with those appropriately. We've bought ourselves some net guns to capture individuals. So yeah, we're trying to deal with them that way and take them away to where they can't cause problems for local landowners.
If anyone has been fishing in Alberta for any length of time, the conversation always comes up around the fact, why can't we get new species put into ponds and lakes and that type of thing? It sounds like you folks are going to go down that experimental road and introduce some catfish.
Well, several years ago, we were asked by the government to have a look at what are the options for potential stockable species. So right now, rainbow trout is the go-to species when it comes to stocking in most of our water bodies. There's other trout species being used, but rainbow is the number one. And for ACA, that's 90% of what we stock in our ponds. And of course, with climate change issues occurring and warmer weather, we're finding more and more of our ponds just aren't conducive to holding rainbow trout throughout the year. They might be good in the spring, maybe in the fall, but throughout the summer months, the temperatures are just simply getting too warm for rainbow to survive. So that was sort of part of the impetus is, okay, if we want to think longer term, what are our other options? If waters continue to warm, what's a good species for us to stock? So our staff went through the process of looking at all the possible species that are basically stocked in other jurisdictions in North America, looked at what would work in our water conditions, what the cost would be, what acceptance there would be from anglers, and in the end, it was channel catfish that shook out at the top. For those who are immediately saying, what about bass? Bass was there as well, but bass ended up being a lot more expensive because it's more difficult to find places that are rearing bass for stocking. So it's up there in the top three, I believe, but channel catfish came out at top. And so we've moved forward on that project looking at, okay, what would it take to actually bring the species to the point where we could introduce it into some waters here in Alberta. Now, obviously, the number one issue is we don't want to just be throwing catfish willy-nilly everywhere. If they start reproducing, what kind of impacts could they have? So having sterile catfish is a big issue. And one of the things we found is the growers out of the States really don't have sterile catfish very often. And when we talk to people down there, they also always sort of give us a sideways look, why would you want a sterile fish? They are producing these fish to actually reproduce over and over again. So having sterile fish isn't something to really work on very much. So that's the number one issue we're looking at. And so we've now got approval out of the provincial government to bring some catfish into a quarantine facility and start doing the research on okay, how do we work on sterility in these fish? What's a good technique to ensure that when we're trying to reproduce young, that these young are going to be sterile and not create a problem out on the landscape? So that's the first, and it's a big step, major step. And of course, that's not an expertise we have, but there are organizations in the province that do. And right now we're talking with Lethbridge College, and we think there's a good opportunity there to partner with the world-class expertise that they have in aquaculture to start working on catfish as a potential species down the road.
Yeah, I guess maybe somebody listening to this would be going, "Oh my God, what are we doing?" Playing with the balance. We've talked about invasive species before, Todd, and introducing a new species into even it seems like a pond that's isolated somehow, some way, it finds a way to migrate. So this conversation around the fact that they cannot reproduce is a pretty important one.
Yeah, and it's also because with any sterilization technique, there's always that one that didn't get sterilized, right? So then there's also the assessment. Okay, well, what if a couple do get out? What's the potential impact? What are the risks, or how do we deal with those? So there's all those kinds of questions still have to be worked out for sure. So I want to make sure that people aren't under the impression that next year, we're dropping catfish everywhere and it's all done. It'll be a longer term process. We're talking 3 to 5 years before we're getting close to being able to think about putting fish out in the landscape. But it's an important first step, I think, to ensure we're climate change protecting our put and take fisheries, really is what it comes down to. Because if we just stick with what we have right now for trout, and the predictions come true with the temperatures, we're just simply not going to have a put and take fishery like we do right now. So that's really what we're looking at.
And the correct me if I'm wrong, but the channel catfish can be a pretty impressive fish when they reach maturity.
Yeah, and I guess that's the other thing to stress to people. You'll go online and look up channel catfish, and you'll see some massive specimens. We are not expecting fish to get that big in any of the ponds we ever put them in. So don't expect to catch a 25-pound channel catfish. It'd be great, but it's not what's going to be expected. We're expecting these are going to be in the 1-pound range kind of idea, as opposed to the 25-pound range. So replacing your rainbow trout that you're catching in those ponds right now. You don't expect to go catch a 10 or 15-pound rainbow trout in most of our put and take fisheries. So this is the same thing. So people's expectations should be tempered with, you can see them online, they're huge. We're not expecting that here. So far, our water temperatures, aren't warm enough, long enough to create those kinds of growth rates. And plus, like I said, this is supposed to be, we're looking at them as a put and take fishery. So we put them in the spring for hopefully people are taking them home to eat by the fall kind of idea. So, but times change as we go on. We'll see what happens. But at this point, nobody should get excited about a trophy catfish coming out of one of our small ponds. That's just not a reality.
So I guess it's time to brush up on some recipes for just some pan-fried catfish.
Absolutely, and you check that out online, and people love them out of the States. Even I talked to lots of people from Manitoba that are here that have caught them in Manitoba and love fishing for them, love the taste of them. So yeah, it's an exciting thing, and we're hoping it all goes well and we'll be able to figure out any issues and like I say, have another option when it comes to some of our warmer stockable water bodies in the future.
Sounds exciting. Catfish and turkey, Todd. Thanks so much.
No.